Hello, my name's Jane Heath. I'm the principal of the Australian Science and Mathematics School in Adelaide, South Australia. Thank you for this opportunity to share the story of the Australian Science and Maths School, and particularly to share what it is that we're doing in relation to our teaching and learning programs. Our school is a senior secondary school. It's a school for our Year 10, Year 11 and Year 12 students, which I think is the equivalent of your sixth form in Germany. We have 380 students in our school. We're located on the campus of a university, Flinders University, and we focus on science and mathematics. Students apply to come to our school based on their passion and their interest in science and mathematics. We've been doing some pretty incredible work here over the last 19 years that I've been working in the school. We've been working on really transforming the way that students experience learning in a senior secondary school. What's been key to that have been some platforms which you can see on the slide I'm sharing with you now, which actually have helped us focus the work that we do in our school to do things quite differently, in line with where we believe young people are interested and need to be in the 21st century. So I'm just going to share with you some of these platforms in this presentation, but you can see what's at the centre of that is our professional learning program, our commitment to supporting our teachers, our staff in their capacity to actually do the work that we need them to be doing. I'd like to talk with you first about our learning programs. What guides us in the design of our learning programs for our Year 10 through to our Year 12 students is that we're looking for learning for understanding. And in order to do that, we believe that when we plan our learning programs, we need to provide our students with the opportunity to make connections with their experiences, their knowledge, their interests, for them to have some agency in their learning so they can make some decisions about how they're learning, what they're learning, and in what way they would provide evidence of that. And also to make sure that there's some coherence, making sure that we are helping them to see the relevance of what they're learning, making sure that they can have a deep conceptual understanding. So we've actually prepared a statement that we use to guide the work across our school, which we call Learning at ASMS. And I won't go into the detail around those three pillars that hold it together. You can read it here for yourself. But as a leader, it's been critical that we have a common understanding about what it is we're going after in designing our programs from Year 10 through to Year 12. In particular, our Year 10 and 11 program is based on a 2-year cycle. So as I mentioned earlier, our Year 10s and Year 11s are in the same classes together, and they work through a cycle that enables them to complete over a 2-year period all of the curriculum that they're required to complete in South Australia, guided by the Australian curriculum. So we call our subjects something a little bit different. We don't call them maths, physics, English. We actually refer to them by a title that you can see in that cycle. So we refer to our subjects as the energy equation, for example, communication systems, body in questions. They are the three that we're running currently this semester. And within each of those three central studies, we actually cover physics, mathematics, English, history. It's the design of the curriculum is what we are referring to as interdisciplinary. It provides that opportunity for connection and for coherence, as I mentioned before. So we look to have a lens of science and mathematics, but we still most definitely cover the other discipline areas. Next semester, we will move into student inquiry project, medical engineering, and sustainable futures as our central studies, and so on. At the core of our central studies program is a curriculum that we refer to as the Learning Studies curriculum. That has the equivalent in our school of 300 minutes a week. And in those 300 minutes, we support our students to understand themselves as learners, to be metacognitive in their approach to their learning, to be able to reflect on what they've achieved, to look at the feedback that they receive in relation to their learning, to plan how they can improve, and to set their learning goals as a result of that curriculum. We also cover health, personal learning plans as part of that program. So again, we look at that in Year 12. So while we don't have the interdisciplinary curriculum in the same format that we do with our Year 10s and 11s, we actually have connections across our subjects at Year 12. So a subject like mathematics, we look in biology and mathematics to make connections between those two subjects in a conscious way. So students will see the connections. So they might look at statistics, for example. Same in psychology. Students work through a learning menu. They have agency in the way that they work through that learning menu. They're able to plan their own time. They're able to access resources that best meet their needs, and they then present their learning as they negotiate with their teacher. We also run a subject called extraordinary learning, which is, this is the second year that we've offered this subject, and the subject is based wholly on the students designing their whole program. The teacher makes sure that they are supported to meet the assessment requirements of our secondary certificate, but they're planning it and running it themselves. How do we organise our school in order to do that is a question. I know one of the things that you were keen to hear about was how we work in our teaching teams and how we actually design that learning. So we actually, first of all, have pretty big blocks of time that we allow for our students to be engaged in their lessons. We run 100-minute sessions. I'm not sure whether that's something that you are doing in your school, but certainly it's not something that is very common in South Australian schools. We found that it's a way that students can really commit to their learning, and they can really go deep into their learning because they've got an extended period of time. You'll also notice from the timetable that I've shown you on the slide here that there are some double sessions. So, for example, on Monday morning, one of our central study subject is called Truth and Perception. Half of our cohort is called B group, and they've got a double session. So they have a total of 200 minutes with a break in the middle on Monday mornings. Then in the afternoon on a Monday, they'd be doing a subject called Student Inquiry Project. We also run our Year 12 lines, so you can see there the numbers that are on the timetable. They equate to the Year 12 subjects that we offer, and they also run on a 100-minute block time. You will also notice that we have meeting time for our teachers scheduled into that timetable. So we give time set aside for teachers to come together to plan the learning program, and they plan that in their interdisciplinary teams. There is a leader allocated to that team, to each of those teams, and they use that to design the learning. They use that to set the assessment tasks, to actually do the assessment and to check the assessment against each other. So we call that a moderation process. And they have time to do that within the school day. Every Tuesday, we have a time slot for our staff to be involved in professional learning, and we use that time not only to support the teachers in their design of learning, but also to really dig deeply into their approaches to teaching and their pedagogical approach in particular. It's interesting to hear about a little bit about our teaching teams. From a student's perspective, you can see the quote from one of our students there, which is quite insightful, I think. What we enable to happen is our students access teachers who have the expertise in the area that they're needing that expertise in. So our school is a very open design. You see that from the diagram that you would have received in the information about this session. And on the floor, as we call it, in those double spaces, we can have 60 to 70 students in classes, and we can have 2 or 3 teachers working in that space. And those teachers will come with their own expertise. So there'll be perhaps a maths teacher, an English teacher, and a history teacher, or a science, physics teacher, and a maths teacher, and an English teacher. And as the students are working through their interdisciplinary learning program, the teacher who has that expertise supports them as needed in their learning. It might be that the student's working very independently, but they might need to just check or ask the student a question. So that teacher is available, timetabled on there for them to help them out. One of our students referred to that as having an arsenal of teachers who they can choose from. So if I'm not able to explain it to them in a way that they understand, they could go to another teacher and maybe check in with them to help them better understand. So it's quite a rich experience. How do we actually enable that to happen? What teaching approaches do we have, and what is the role of the teacher in the classroom is a key point, I think, particularly given the conversations that you're going to be having. Well, obviously, here in South Australia, we have our own frameworks that we're using to shape our learning. One of them is around the ACARA, the Australian Curriculum and Assessment Reporting Authority. That is mandated for us in our schools up until Year 10. And then we have a certificate of education, what we call the SACE, South Australian Certificate of Education. And that actually covers part of Year 10, but all of Year 11 and all of Year 12. And there is a certain number of subjects that we need to support students to be completing in order to receive that certificate at the end of their schooling. We are also guided by, in Australia, the National STEM Strategy, because we're a science and maths school. Obviously, that's a big part of our work. And we've also been digging quite deeply into the pedagogical approach, using what we have as teaching for effective learning is the framework that we have in South Australia. And we've been working on actually providing some opportunities for our staff to really think carefully about how they design the learning and what their role is in relation to that. So the focus for our teaching approaches in our school is very much around an inquiry-rich, student-centred approach. We use research to inform our practice, particularly the Teaching for Effective Learning framework, but there's a number of other researchers that we refer to that guide our practice. We're very collaborative in our work, so you just won't see one teacher with one class in one classroom in our school. It'll always be multiple teachers in very open spaces, and it's interdisciplinary, particularly in our Year 10 and our Year 11 program. A key thing for us has been around shifting the headset of a teacher from not being the person in the classroom that has all the expertise, but actually being a facilitator of learning who definitely has expertise, particularly in teaching and learning, but also in some subject areas. But their main job is to support our students to be successful in their learning. So they need to guide, support, facilitate, and not take over. Because what we know and understand is that by simply standing in front of a group of people and talking at them is not necessarily equating to them understanding and actually building their own knowledge base. So we talk a lot here with our teachers and in our students about the role of a teacher actually being the facilitator of learning. Key to this has been our professional learning program, as I mentioned at the beginning. Our professional learning program is structured into our weekly program, but it's also something that we put quite a lot of resourcing into in terms of leadership roles and time allocation for people to be engaged in professional learning. So every Tuesday afternoon, students in our school go home. Most schools in South Australia now would have a block of time for their teachers to be engaged in professional learning, not necessarily after school hours. And we plan that program for our teachers with a lot of agency that the teachers can use in relation to what it is that they're engaging and learning in and about. We align our professional learning program with our school's strategic directions, our school's strategic plan, which is in line with our education department's strategic plan, which is actually about being world-class education in South Australia. And we make sure that our teachers, no matter what stage of their career that they're at, that they're able to connect the professional learning to their needs, to their work, which might be dependent upon what stage of their career. They might be in their first 5 years, for example. They might have been teaching for 20 years or more. It's important that they're able to connect to professional learning that is relevant to them. So I've covered a lot of information in a very quick period of time. I hope it's been useful for you. I hope it's been something that has connected with your thinking in this forum. We are very open to ongoing conversations. You can most definitely visit our website. We're developing a professional learning component of that website, which should be launched in May. You'll be able to connect to a number of our resources that I've only just had a chance to mention today. Thank you again for the opportunity of talking with you about what we're doing in the Australian Science and Maths School, and I wish you all the very best in your endeavours in the future. Thank you.